Kedụ, or na-aga? Good evening, everybody. How are you doing? How is it going? So I'm a tad bit curious on how many people here speak their native languages, or what you classify as your parents' native language. Okay, so, and then how many of you actually read and write in the said language? Okay. So in 2012, UNESCO predicted that the Igbo language will go extinct by 2025 if nothing is done. I vaguely remember that the news spreading on social media, and as usual, the different classes of commenters did not disappoint. So you have the intellectuals conversing, you have the doomsday suspectors blaming the man or somebody for the fake news. You have the jokers, those so that just come to have fun and keep things light. And of course, those people that wake up every day with the sole intention of showing up on social media to fighting all these different groups, you know. And I have to confess, I actually was indifferent when I saw this news. I don't even think I shared it. And my indifference wasn't because I didn't care. It was more the fact that I didn't pause to appreciate the implications. You see, because I think the news came out like in January, February 2012, and at the time I was wrapping up my expatriate assignment in Canada. So I was moving back to Houston from Calgary, Alberta, and transitioning my role in Calgary to my successor and taking up my new roles here in Houston. I was also planning the final stages of my third wedding to the same man. So my third final wedding to the same man. So my church wedding was, he's right there by the way, to the same man. So I was planning my final wedding, and I was house hunting as well. So I had quite a few things going on. 2013 we had our first child, Kes, and we made a conscious decision to speak Igbo with him. Like, we wanted him to speak Igbo. And before then, I have to say that even though I grew up in the East, in the eastern part of Nigeria, Igbo didn't come to me naturally. Like, I didn't just speak Igbo to people. I only spoke Igbo when I needed to speak Igbo. And that wasn't for any reason. It was just the fact that, like, my secondary school, I went to federal government girls' school, where Igbo was kind of seen as vernacular, even though it was in the East, because we had people from all parts of Nigeria in the school. So it wasn't like a language that we spoke all the time, but I did get an A1 in junior YX, senior YX, because I could read, speak, and write Igbo as well. So my husband and I made a conscious decision to speak Igbo with our kids, and so we were doing that with Kes. And for the most part, he understood Igbo more than he understood English. But once he started talking, I started to notice that I was speaking Igbo to versus with him. So he could understand everything I was saying to him in Igbo, but he wasn't responding back in Igbo. So he could say some words, but he wasn't making full sentences in Igbo. And so naturally, we just set up the internet. So we searched for Igbo learning materials here in Diaspora, so in the US, in Canada, in the UK, and we also went to Nigeria and also tried to get some Igbo learning material there. And that's when I noticed the absence of fun, durable Igbo learning material for children. Now, please don't get me wrong, this is not a diss at all at the books that we bought. A lot of them had great content, they just were not as practical for my son and then daughter, because they will easily rip off the pages, because they were all paper copy books, so they will rip off the pages, and they were more, like they had an affinity for their English board books. So they are Dr. Seuss and Goodbye Moon, they had more affinities with them. And I noticed it was because of the quality, like they were board books, so they couldn't easily tear them. And so I started searching for board books, and I couldn't find any in the market. And as an engineer, because people say engineers are not writers, so I never thought I would decide to write a book. But after searching for it and trying and going through different processes, which is a story for a different day, I ended up publishing 2 Igbo children's board books. I started my company, Akwukwo LLC, and published the Igbo children's board books and released an app to social media, an app to iOS and Android. And we have a YouTube channel. I have like some Igbo flashcards and a few other things. So I'm pleased to announce that my kids are actually speaking, and my mission was to Igborize like Igbo, half-Igbo, and all language-loving children around the world to expose them to the Igbo language. And you know, when people see my kids speaking Igbo, or like we just came back from Nigeria on Monday with the kids, and so people hear us speaking Igbo with them, or they know about what I do, like my passion. You know, I get a question a lot from people, and it's why? But why? Why are you teaching them Igbo? What is Igbo going to do for them? Why not teach them French or Spanish or a global language? You know, like why are you teaching them Igbo? And I guess my response to that is always dependent on a few things. The first is the tone that it was asked. So the tone kind of is one thing. The second is my mood. So it depends on how my day was going. And then I guess the third is the amount of time I have to answer the question. But I guess the most obvious reason to Igborize them, to teach my children Igbo, is the fact that it's their heritage, it's their culture, it is who they are. So when you think about it, there are three main aspects of a culture. So you have the language, you have the food, and you have the clothing, like the dressing. So that's how you can almost identify people or their culture. And for me, I guess food and clothing can be adapted at almost any age and by almost anybody. And to some extent, language as well. But the best time to learn a language is as children, because you tend not to forget, and children have the ability to learn up to 5 languages in parallel. So that's French and Spanish or whatever else language that you think is global, you can teach them alongside with their local language. It shouldn't preclude them from learning their local language or a global language. So that's an obvious reason. It is who they are. It is their sense of self. But then, you know, after getting this question quite a few times, I'm like, wait, let me even think about it. What has Igbo done for me, Chimi? Like, like what can I say? Okay, you know what? Igbo has done something for me. And I guess the first thing that came to mind was I graduated college a semester early. And my original plan was actually to just roll into a PhD program, to get my PhD in biomedical engineering was my original plan. And my final year, because my research was an effective cryopreservation method for hepatocytes, which means, get it? So being able to get liver cells to function upon thawing. So it was kind of part of a PhD student's program. She was building a bioartificial liver device. So the device was providing liver cells to liver transplant patients while they wait for a donor. So my part was to come up with a way to, when we thaw those cells upon thawing, well, we freeze the cells upon thawing that they will function at least to 80% capacity, like efficiency. So for me, I did love the engineering aspect of it. So I love like the thermodynamics, the fluid, the heat transfer, and all of that. What I hated was the biological part of it. So like the cells, like you culture 20 cells. Oh, and 5 decide to die because they are what? Living things. I'm like, no, I don't like this at all. I'm going into industry, so I want to go into the workforce. So this was my final semester. And I'm like, I'm going to go into workforce. And usually if you're going to go into the workforce, you start applying because we have like career fairs and all of that. I missed all of that because I was focused on my senior design project. And you know, I practically started applying to different companies. And the funny thing is, the one thing that showed up on every application was, how many languages do you speak? Like the candidates, they asked, how many languages do you speak? So I always put 3 languages. I put English, fluent, Igbo fluent, and French beginner, because I can speak some French. And all my interviews, like 95% of my interviewers asked me about Igbo. It was crazy. It was like, oh, Igbo, what's that? Where is that? What part of the world is that? How did you learn it? Is that your first language? And you know, and for me, I'll say it ended up serving as an icebreaker for me. Like it kind of opened like the conversation to different things, and they got to know aspects of me that I guess they wouldn't have known if I didn't have that on my application. And I'm not going to say speaking Igbo gave me the job, but I'm going to say that when compared, especially now that I also recruit for my company. So when you think about it, if I'm compared side by side by somebody else with the same GPA, got into the semester early, same leadership portfolio, same co-op and internship, and they speak like one language or two, I have like an edge with my 2.5, but I don't know. Because the French is really beginner. But yeah, so I think that is one thing that I was like, okay, that is something I can actually say Igbo definitely help me out with. And I guess the second one that came to mind was when I actually did get the job. Well, I did get all the job offers all the jobs I interviewed for, I did get offers from them. And then when I selected a job and started that job, my full name is Chim Horomnanya. It means my God loves me. So it was on my door. And I could always tell when people had spotted the name. Because they're walking and then they do a moonwalk back. You know, and they're looking like, how do you say that? So, and then it kind of starts a conversation. And so I actually ended up having to network. Like, it ended up becoming, because my first 2 weeks in the company, I ended up meeting so many people, including my lifelong mentor right now. Like, he's a top level manager, and like, I ended up meeting so many people because of my name, because they come and then we start off the conversation with talking about my Igborize long name, and then we end up venturing into other topics. So it ended up becoming like a great thing for me. So that's, I guess, the second thing I would say. And the third thing I will point out would be, like, when I was in college, so I went to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and my siblings also went to the same school, and we lived together, and we worked part-time at a restaurant. And I just remember being able to discuss important things with my brother right in the open with people, because we say it in Igbo, you know. And it was very helpful for us because we lived together, and we didn't always see each other because we all had like our college schedules. Like, I always had like schoolwork and stuff, so like I might not see him like for like 2 days, but we are in the same house, so we just catch up our work. And I have to say though, please, if you do speak a local language, don't use it to insult people, shy. Because but if you like to gossip and that's your thing, hey, if gossiping is your thing, there you go. But like, I try my best not to use like the Igbo language to like make fun of people or to insult them or to say negative things about people, and also to like yell at my kids, because a lot of people, if they want to scold their kids, they speak their language, so the kids kind of connote it with being angry or being negative. So I try not to do that. But I do know that speaking Igbo has helped me, especially even at work. Like, my dad could call for something important, and I'm in a meeting, I can just easily say, hey, I'm in a meeting, can I or something, you know, and we can, like, I'm in a meeting, let me call you back, or answer whatever question he has. So that's another thing that I would say, you know, has really worked out well for me. Now, I had asked you guys how many people speak their local language. And the reason I asked that question is because Igbo is not the only language that is on UNESCO's endangered language list. So there are so many other languages on there. They're from Nigeria, from Africa, and from all over the world as well. And the ability to speak one's native language is very important for the next generation. Something I hear a lot is, oh, my children hear, which means understand, but they don't speak. And I'm like, well, and that's also why I asked if you read and write as well. Because, okay, it's great if they understand. That is a great first step. But they need to take the second step, which is to speak. It's better to speak, and then it is best to actually to be able to understand, speak, and read and write. Because that is the only way they can pass it on to the next generation, to future generations. Now, we see a lot of people these days that are trying to find their roots, and not just Africans or African Americans or Asians, even Caucasians. Like, they try to find their roots back to Europe and just to understand where they are from and try to learn the culture. So it is a great gift to give to the next, to future generations. So I want to tell you guys to please, if you can't speak your language or your native language, or what you call your parents' native language, think about learning, and think about also exposing the children in your life. So it could be your kids, your nieces, your nephews, your godchildren, you know, just expose them to the language.